Hello, and welcome to Dungeon Door. I'm your host, Vladimir von Grabass, and today I am displaying to you one of the worst board games ever to unfortunately walk this planet. I am, of course, talking about Vampire the Masquerade Chapters. Let's sink our teeth into this one. Arr. Please, if you unsubscribe for that, I understand. If I made you cringe there, I apologize, but I just need to let you know that this game made me cringe far harder than anything I'm about to say to you. Now, let me take you back a little bit. When I was just young, fresh, hot ass on the RPG scene, I was looking around for every floozy I could grab a hold of and take a gamble on, but unfortunately ended up in a 10-year-long abusive relationship with D&D 5th edition, and that's a tale for another time. But during that time, I had a wandering eye for all the big RPGs happening around me. Back then I would have loved to grab a hold of some cock or engage in some CP. I'm never going to abbreviate those again. Call of Cthulhu and Cyberpunk, I'm of course talking about a hard conversation with the FBI, that would have been. But one of the many major RPGs I was paying attention to at the time was the World of Darkness. It's a subset of a bunch of RPGs, one of which being Vampire the Masquerade. Now, in Vampire the Masquerade, you can be a vampire, big surprise there, in modern day, living in one of the many great cities across the entire world. This particular game taking place in Montreal, Canada, France, I don't know. They actually never fucking tell you in the game. But I was ecstatic. I put on my finest little vampire button-up, and I was ready to boogie on down at a blood rave and get my vampire on until Blade came and ruined it all for me. But where I was looking for a fun and bloody good time, I instead only found sadness, despair, and a really, really bad board game. So what is Vampire the Masquerade Chapters? Well, the best way I can describe it to you is severe cock and ball torture. I don't mean to be crass here, but that is literally the only way I can get this message across to you. What it touts itself as is a blend of the RPG Vampire the Masquerade with board game sensibilities. They set out to do something that I have been asking for generations. The whole reason I play these campaign-style games is because I am stuck in the forever DM chair where I must lead people to a treasure that I myself cannot obtain. I love engaging in stories where I don't know what's going to happen next, making my own character, and doing all that jazz. The one thing missing, however, is the fact that there's no human DM on the other side of the table that I can riff off of, and have live engagement. Well, this game set out to be that live DM in some way, form, or fashion, and once I heard that, I was ready to bust it on down for anyone that would give me a taste of that ass. So the game starts out and you pick one of 8 pre-generated neonate vampires. All of them come from a different tribe of vampire that has their own unique powers. So you pick one, and you get their little character sheet, and you get their little character board. And they do a really good job at onboarding you into this game. I mean, they have a little booklet for every character that you can play as, and they actually recommend that even if you're not playing as a certain character, that you play through all of the starting character scenarios, because each of them function like a tutorial that teaches you one unique mechanic to go forward in the game. And this was absolutely a great idea. I mean, one scenario was teaching you how to stealth, another how to do a dialogue tree, another investigation, putting together clues, and then finally another one doing combat. And then they kind of just repeat those to really make sure you got it. And when you are focusing on only one of these mechanics, the game is quite easy to understand, but once you get out into the world and have to put all of that into practice, it can get a little confusing, which is fine as long as there's a useful rulebook, to refer to and help you. However, this rulebook had to be written by somebody that skipped every class of being a helpful human being, because They have a table of contents, yet somehow every bit of information we ever needed, whenever we went to the page where it says it's indicated that it probably would be, it's not there. You know, I would so frequently look up shit like, what does fire damage do? You know, it's not in the table of contents, it's not in the glossary in the back, so I'm flipping through every single mother flipping page trying to find it, and I'm spending like 10-15 minutes, and then I finally find it in some sort of little subcategory, and by that time, I want to shove this up my fucking ass. Not because I feel some sort of way about it, but I guess I do feel some sort of way about it. You know, it's got me acting crazy out here. It's got me acting up. Somebody stop me. I digress. I got a little out of pocket there. Took a lap. I'm back. Now, here we go. We've got 3 tracks on your character. We've got damage, we've got willpower, and we've got hunger. Damage essentially is your hit points. Willpower is actually, you spend it to re-roll dice if you don't get the result you want. And let me tell you right now, you are going to be using that willpower mechanic more than anything else you ever have in your life, because for some godforsaken reason, the skill checks required to complete in this game are damn near impossible. They're out asking here for me to roll a 10 or 11 or a 12, and it's like, Your Honor, the highest I could possibly get is a 6 or a 7. What is you talking about? When a skill check comes along, you're going to be looking at your character sheet. Now, we've got 3 attributes here: physical, mental, and social. And those little dots there indicate how many of these 10, D10s you're going to be rolling. Now, all of them feature either a blank symbol, you're going to be rolling that a lot somehow, an Ankh, which that counts as 1, and then this one counts as 2, right? However, you'll see that there was this hunger track here as well. Now, this represents the innate thirst for blood that all vampires have. A cool mechanic, meaning that for every point in hunger you have, you replace your dice pool with a red dice. So, for example, if we're making an athletics check, that's 3 dice. Well, I got 2 hunger, so 2 of them are going to be red. Now, I automatically get 3 successes in athletics because I've got 3 check marks here. Down here in discipline, all these dots mean is it's the cool little vampire powers you get, like Soaring Leap, Prowess, Mask of 1,000 Faces, and Bond Famulus. Those are cool and all that, but the real problem here is, they ask you to make a check. Say the number is 8 or something like that. You roll the dice, and 9 out of 10 odds, this is exactly the result you're going to get. I swear to God, I don't know the mathematics on this, but I promise you there is more blanks on these dice than anything else. So, you're going to re-roll, and you're going to try and get the Ankh symbols that you need. But on all of these red dice, there's the elusive and scary skull symbol. Whenever this happens, it means you make a ruse check. And what that means is you're going to take a single red dice, and you're going to roll it again, and hope for an Ankh symbol, meaning that your hunger wouldn't go up. But as I said, somehow 90% of the time you're gonna roll a blank or another one of these skulls, and that'll make your hunger track slowly go up. And if it ever reaches its maximum, your character goes into a frenzy where they run off the scenario and apparently kill people off screen. Some absolute crazy and cool shit. I do like the idea of, I'm a vampire, I gotta hope I don't go into a frenzy and start, just tweaking out like I did when I tried to play this game. And you could say, Dungeon Door, you probably just had some really bad RNG luck. You probably were just rolling really poorly. You're right. That is a factor, but I swear to God, those numbers were way too high for whatever skill set I was at for that given time. But I digress. I'll give you that one, But what I won't give you is another damn dollar out of my pocket. You see, this game probably ran me about $160 to $180, and it did have a decent amount of gameplay length to it. It was about 49 hours and 14 sessions to complete. Usually pretty light work here for us over at Dungeon Door. We could knock that shit out in about 1 to 2 months max. This took us all the way from February of 2024 to December of 2024 because we absolutely refused to sit down at the table and play it because we were just straight up not having a good time. The rulebook being one of the key features, but there were so many more. The game is divided into 4 different key gameplay loops. There's combat, there's stealth, there's investigation, and there's dialogue. Well, the combat and the stealth worked relatively well. Now, when you go to set up a scenario, you're going to refer to the storybook. That's only got about 1 or 2 paragraphs of setup information. I greatly appreciate that they keep it brief. It gets you right into the action. They tell you everything you're gonna need, all the tokens and the miniatures. They tell you, what little book to refer to for everything else. And then they have fully illustrated tiles. So you can just pop the map right out, throw a few tokens on it, throw a few miniatures, and you're ready to start sucking it dry. Now, running combat isn't so bad in theory. You're just moving up to a variety of different enemies and beating the shit out of them until they're dead. On your turn, you're going to have a series of combat cards in your hand. These cards are composed not only of base level abilities, but also of whatever physical skills that you've leveled up throughout the campaign. So, if you've got a pretty high athletics, you'll unlock new athletic cards. If you've got some weapon skills, then you'll unlock some exclusive weapon cards. It's pretty cool. So you draw a hand, and then you're kind of stuck with whatever you've got in your hand of what you can play. Now, I did like the combat system. It was pretty good in theory. You've got cards like dodge, straight shot if you've got a gun, pierce if you've got some sort of melee weapon. You could do leap, giving you extra movement and upping your initiative. Uppercut if you just want to go toe-to-toe with whatever creature you're fighting. You play it and they'll have a score on the card, whether it adds to your attack and even your defense for when it comes to you getting attacked. You can also do fun things with those vampire abilities I talked about earlier, the discipline cards. Some of them can have you conjuring awesome blood magic. Others, you can have a pet rat summon and aid you to your side. Whenever you want to activate one of these abilities, it's called using the blood, in which you'll have to make one of those ruse checks and hope that you don't increase your hunger by tapping in to your blood energy. On your turn, you'll use a variety of different items that you will have purchased throughout the campaign to help you, and these can range from, weapons to utility items such as Molotov cocktails and handguns and all sorts of stuff like that. And you'll use the corresponding skills in order to fight against them. So if I wanted to shoot this little rat here, I'm going to have to use my weapons skill. So that's going to be a physical weapon skill, meaning I'll roll 3 dice and automatically get 2 successes to it. There we go, probably one of the best rolls I've ever seen. With a 1, 2, and 2 in weapons, that's going to be a total of 4. Now, enemies work relatively the same as well. They'll have an initiative score to tell you when they go into combat. They'll have an attack score telling you how much damage they do, and a resistance score telling you how much damage they can soak before your damage gets through. They also feature a deck of cards exclusive to each different enemy type, and basically you'll shuffle up the deck and draw from the top of the pile to see what it is that they do on that turn. And the enemy AI does work fairly well. It'll tell you, like, attack the closest target or attack the most injured target. So everything works really well on that front. Stealth is also good, but can sometimes be a little ridiculous. Basically, you'll be looking for this little icon here, the arrow on each miniature, to see which way they're facing. You move your character along the board, and as long as they're behind them or to the side of them, they'll have an advantage or extra dice on not being seen. But the closer they are in front of them, they will have less and less dice, or the number will get higher, making it harder for you to stealth past them. But there is scenarios where you can literally be standing right in front of the person, and as long as you pass your stealth roll, you could stand right in front of them and jerk their shit, and they would be none the wiser. Now, if you see here, most NPCs that you're either going to engage in combat with or you're going to be talking to come with a black base, which just means that they're normal. Now, in one of the opening tutorial scenarios, they also tell you about these characters that are going to have red bases on them, which mean that they are available to be feasted upon. You are a vampire after all, and you do need to be eaten. I don't even know why they included this mechanic in the game, because quite literally it came up twice in this entire game. I'm talking 49 hours of gameplay over 14 sessions, and I was only able to be a vampire twice by actually feasting on somebody for their blood. What is we doing? What is we doing? Now, in between scenarios, you're supposed to be doing these things called feeding events, where you do these quick little side book adventures. You go out onto the city of Montreal, and you can, feast on people, regaining your humanity, lowering your hunger, healing yourself, whatever it is that scenario gives you. Well, this game in a tutorial didn't tell us anything about feeding events, and because the rulebook is so confusing and hides all of its information, by the time we figured out that feeding events were even a feature of this game, we were already halfway through the campaign and had made some sort of narrative blunder where we locked ourselves out of even doing feeding events ever again. Now, when it comes to investigation and dialogue, this is also relatively simple. You'll simply just move around the board freely, go up to investigation tokens, engage with them, and the book will tell you exactly what to do. There's also actionable tiles where you can interact with items around you, as well as NPCs to go up to talk to. So everything I told you thus far probably makes you believe, okay, this game is not that bad, it's just a dice pool system, you're trying to hit target numbers, this and that. Yeah, it's very simple in theory, but then we get to the biggest problem of all. The main thing that I was excited for, the whole, version of their DM at the table, and it comes in the form of thousands and thousands of these little tiny books. They have one for each scenario. Every scenario you enter, you'll be getting a little book that goes along with it, and in there they have every item you can interact with in that scenario, every NPC you could talk to, and it's really set up to be something grand. Every option they have for you is exactly what you would probably think of if you were playing an actual RPG with a physical DM. You go up to a computer and all the options are listed there, like, oh, do you want to try and guess the password? Do you want to try and hack into it? Do you want to break the laptop? Do you want to steal the laptop? Like, they've got all those options there for you. You have an NPC asking you questions, they have a whole dialogue tree. Every time you pick an option, it'll have you go to a new page, like a choose your own adventure type of thing. I was absolutely blown out my shorts when I was reading the tutorials and everything was, going well. But it seems like they only put effort into the first hour to 2 hours of gameplay of this game, because then after the fact, I don't know what the fuck happened. We were having a great time in the beginning. On every front, we were engaging in dialogue trees and, talking to people, making social skill checks, succeeding, having this outcome happen, sometimes failing, having that outcome happen. Anytime we got into combat, we mostly we're just having a cakewalk, as we found most of the combat really easy, along with the stealth, and the investigations weren't too hard either. You would look around, find a couple clues that made logical sense, and then they would actually have you kind of solve the mystery by giving you, an A, B, C, D option of what you think the conclusion is. So everything was great. But then, I don't know what happened, but all of a sudden, it felt like whoever was writing these was not the same person that was writing them for the first 2 hours of gameplay. Everything got way different. You would think that whoever started writing these skipped every grammar class from grades 1 through 8 because a lot of the sentence structure didn't even make sense. It was as if this game came from another language and then was thrown into Google Translate and spit back out into English, and then they printed it off in these books. All of a sudden, things started flying off the rails by the time we got to our third session. When we now are making skill checks, all of a sudden the skill check numbers are getting incredibly high to the point that we're failing them time and time again, and we're like, holy shit, how did they possibly expect anyone to get a 10 when the highest I could get is an 8, Your Honor? Make it make sense. It simply doesn't. Then, when we're talking about combat, they're like, oh, you want to do your best not to engage in combat because it's not the vampire way. You could risk breaching the Masquerade. Well, first of all, the fuck is you talking about, game? There is no way that we even encountered to have the Masquerade breached in this game, because you told us that there would be people around, that we could feed upon, and they never show up. If they do, it's very rarely. And then on top of that, the writing just gets so convoluted that I think even the people writing these scenarios forgot all the aspects that are going on, to the point that just shit made zero sense, and we would frequently find ourselves getting stuck in the game and just having to make our own conclusions of how to proceed forward because things just didn't make sense at all. For example, we were at a concert, right? Fighting zombies. Slight spoilers for you, but you shouldn't play this game anyway. We're at a concert fighting zombies, and there's a whole bunch of people. There's a rock band, there's security guards, the whole 9 yards. We're fighting them, and realistically, the people begin to scatter away. They're all running for the hills as you should, and then the security guard and the rock band are still just up there playing away, and once we finish the encounter, we're like, why the hell did they stay here? We go up to security guards and they're like, there's no way you're getting up on stage. This band is performing. This is a live performance, blah, blah. I'm like, my brother in Christ, everybody left. There was zombies. I'm a vampire. Are you not concerned about any of this? Are they not concerned? The people ran away. They're performing to absolutely nobody right now. And things like that would happen all the time. Now, there is some parts as well where combat is unavoidable, and that is in the form of boss battles. Now, I love me a good boss battle, right? And in the beginning of this campaign, they have a pretty cool square-off against a unique enemy, you know, to shake things up. I really thought it was cool. But after that, it's like the game just forgot that they were supposed to have boss battles, because they don't have a single one for multiple hours of gameplay until you get to the very end, and then they're like, oh shit, we forgot about the bosses. Let's just do a boss rush at the end of this campaign, and we're also going to make the combat incredibly hard now. We were having a cakewalk the whole time, and now all of a sudden, everything is impossible. The skill checks are impossible. The combat is impossible. The narrative doesn't make any sense. Like, everything was just falling apart at the seam. And that's not even touching on the story of this game, all right? I'm going to break it down for you, because even if I told you what, the basic consensus of what transpires, it still wouldn't matter, because it was so hard to follow. There is so much vampire politics going on that we were lost for the most part. Basically, you are new vampires joining the Vampire Society, and very quickly there is a rogue group of vampires who want to control the world and make it known that they, vampires, are here and they're ready to start fucking shit up. So, it's a race against time between you and them to find these ancient relics and, stop them from their evil plot. It sounded really cool, but they stretched that story out so far and so long that we were like, what the fuck are we even doing anymore? Why are we doing all this random side bullshit? I thought we were looking for ancient relics and whatnot. And then you get to finally what you think is going to be the whole big ending, and they pull the rug out from under you, and lo and behold, you've got a whole nother, 10 to 20 hours of gameplay ahead of you. And by this point, I had fully given up, and when you reach that campaign end, they're like, hey, the story is incomplete. You did all of this, and it's not complete. Tune in for Chapter 2 when we continue this tale. There is no way in the heavenly father fuck I am buying the sequel to this game. This thing should be burned in a fire, and so too should any plans you have of continuing this. If you couldn't even make coherent scenarios for this game, do you think I have any belief in you that you're going to be able to do that for a follow-up? I could go on and on, truly, I really could, but ultimately, at the end of the day, this game had an absolute load of potential. I really thought that this was going to be the answer to all of my prayers of having, a truly interactive story where I get to pick my dialogue options and see where it goes. But when the writing and the dialogue trees are so broken to the point that me and my partners are having to make up what happens next, clearly we have a problem here. And when the difficulty gets so high towards the end of your game that it's literally not seen as challenging or fun, but just wildly unfair, you failed in your job completely. Due to everything I told you, there was very few positives, and for us, a lot of negatives. I, for the first time in Dungeon Door history, am going to be giving this game a 1.5 out of 5. It has very few redeemable qualities, but ultimately turns into an unplayable, broken mess that, unfortunately, should be avoided at all costs. It's a hard thing to say that this was probably going to be my one and only venture into the world of Vampire the Masquerade, but you want to know what? Maybe I'm just not meant to be a vampire, baby. And maybe you aren't either. Well, ultimately, keep it real, don't steal, and eat your veal. I was your host, Vladimir Von Grabass, and this was another episode of Dungeon Door where I bring the dungeon to your door. And as always, when I open my next door, I do hope to see you behind it.